Resident Evil is about to enter a whole new era. According to a brand new leak, a Resident Evil 1 remake is no longer just a maybe someday project. It's reportedly actively in development, and if this information turns out to be true, it means Capcom isn't slowing down after the code Veronica remake. Instead, they're planning the next decade of Resident Evil games. But that's not all. We also have a rumored roadmap that could reveal what Capcom has planned for the Resident Evil franchise over the next 5 years. There is a lot to break down, so let's jump straight into it. According to Insider Gaming, full production on a Resident Evil 1 remake has officially begun. Now, that's a very important detail. When a game enters full production, it usually means the early concept phase, planning, and prototyping are already complete. In other words, the project has moved into actual development, with a dedicated team actively building the game. That said, it's still very early. According to the report, because development has only recently started, the remake is likely 4 to 7 years away from release. And even then, there's one important thing to remember whenever we're talking about Capcom, or the gaming industry in general. Plans can change, projects can be delayed, rebooted, reshuffled, or even canceled entirely. So, the headline here is not that Resident Evil 1 is coming next year. The real headline is that a Resident Evil 1 remake reportedly exists. It's moving through development, and it could be part of a much larger remake strategy that stretches well into the next decade. Now, this immediately raises two big questions. First, why remake Resident Evil 1 again when it already received a remake back in 2002? And second, if Capcom really is rebuilding Resident Evil 1, what would that even look like using the modern RE engine? Personally, I think the timeline is one of the biggest reasons this leak sounds believable. We already have a rough idea of Capcom's rumored release schedule. The Code Veronica remake is expected to launch in 2027, while Resident Evil 0 remake is rumored for 2028. If Insider Gaming had claimed Resident Evil 1 was releasing in the next 2 or 3 years, I probably wouldn't believe it. That would completely conflict with everything we've been hearing. But a release window that's still 4 to 7 years away actually fits Capcom's development pattern. The company likes to space out its major Resident Evil releases instead of rushing them. And honestly, Resident Evil 1 is probably the most difficult remake Capcom could make. You can't simply update the graphics and call it a day. Resident Evil 1 is the foundation of the entire franchise. If they're rebuilding it in the modern RE engine, they'll have to redesign nearly every aspect of the game. Gameplay, level design, pacing, exploration, combat, enemy AI, and storytelling would all need to evolve to meet modern expectations. By the time this remake finally launches, games like Resident Evil 10 will likely already be out. Player expectations will be completely different, the RE engine will have gone through multiple upgrades, and Capcom will have learned even more from its previous releases. So this isn't just another remake, it's an opportunity for Capcom to completely redefine the game that started one of gaming's biggest horror franchises. Now, this is where things get even more interesting. The discussion around this leak actually started with another rumor about Resident Evil 9. According to Dusk Golem, one reason the Spencer Mansion was reportedly removed from Resident Evil 9 was because Capcom wanted to save that iconic location for a future Resident Evil 1 remake. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense. If you're planning to rebuild one of the most legendary locations in gaming history, you probably don't want to reuse it in another game first. You want players' next visit to the Spencer Mansion to feel fresh, exciting, and unforgettable. Saving it for a full remake would be the smarter move. Of course, this is still just speculation, but the logic behind it definitely fits. Now let's talk about the rumored roadmap. According to Dusk Golem, the current internal release order looks something like this. First, Resident Evil Code Veronica remake in Resident Evil 0 remake in 2028. After that, Resident Evil 10 is expected around 2029. And finally, the Resident Evil 1 remake could arrive sometime in 2030 or even later. If that's accurate, then Capcom has an incredibly ambitious plan. Again, none of this is officially confirmed. Capcom hasn't announced any of these games beyond what's already public, so treat everything here as a rumor. But it's still fascinating to talk about because it reveals what Capcom's long-term strategy could look like. If this roadmap is real, Capcom is essentially alternating between brand new mainline games and classic remakes, keeping the Resident Evil franchise active almost every single year. From a business perspective, that's a brilliant strategy. Resident Evil has become one of Capcom's biggest and most successful franchises. Every time a new remake launches, millions of new players jump into the series. Every time a brand new numbered title releases, the franchise gains even more momentum. It's a cycle that continues to grow stronger with every release. Meanwhile, Devil May Cry is probably sitting in the corner asking, "Hey Capcom, do I still exist?" Seriously though, Resident Evil has become Capcom's biggest powerhouse. And based on these leaks, they don't seem to have any plans to slow down anytime soon. Now, here's the part of the report that actually makes this entire roadmap feel more believable. According to the leak, Capcom has internal meetings planned for 2027 to evaluate the future of the franchise after seeing the performance of Code Veronica Remake, Resident Evil 9, and other upcoming projects. That sounds exactly like how large game studios operate. They don't lock in a release schedule for the next 10 years without flexibility. Instead, they analyze sales, player feedback, review scores, and overall reception before deciding which project should move into full production next. So even if this roadmap is accurate today, it could easily change in the future. And honestly, we've already seen Capcom make decisions like this before. Resident Evil 3 Remake received a much more mixed reception than Resident Evil 2. Despite that, Capcom came back with what many fans, including myself, consider one of the greatest video game remakes ever made, Resident Evil 4 Remake. So nothing is guaranteed. Plans evolve, priorities change, and Capcom will ultimately follow whatever direction makes the most sense for both the fans and the business. For now, I recommend taking every part of this leak with a healthy dose of skepticism. It's exciting to discuss, and some of it certainly sounds believable, but until Capcom officially reveals these projects, everything should be treated as speculation. But if this roadmap ends up being true, Resident Evil fans have an incredible future ahead of them. So, what do you think? Would you like to see Capcom remake Resident Evil 1 again using the modern RE engine? Or do you think the 2002 remake is already perfect and should be left alone? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe for more Resident Evil news, leaks, and updates, and I'll see you in the next one.